The United States defeat Canada 2-1 in Milan. We're gonna break down the good, the bad, the ugly for both the United States Team Canada. Real quick, I do want to mention congratulations to Team Canada for the awesome win. I'm going to talk a lot of positively and negatively, but I'm going to try to be fair as possible. And also, I want to congratulate because both the men and women's team did great for Team Canada, but also big congrats to Team USA for defeating Canada. On the men and women's side, the women played absolutely amazing, dominated, and I think this was if anything was going to help girls want to get into hockey, especially now that there's a league for them to thrive, and I hope it continues to expand in the PWHL. This was the time for a big moment like that for the United States, and I'm happy that they got that done. And hell of a team, 5 shutouts, just destroyed everybody and dominated. And it got a little rough, but they came in clutch when it needed to happen. Let's talk about the men and let's break down the game. Let's just break it down first before we get into all the extracurricular activities. Let's talk about the big elephant in the room. No Sidney Crosby for this game. That was probably the worst part of it all. No Sidney Crosby in potentially his last Olympics. He might still be around for the world, games in 2 years in 2028. So, maybe he still has a chance to get some sort of, one more gold against the United States or something like that. But it is tough in situations like that. I wonder how bad his injury is. You wonder if it's not too bad. He just doesn't want to make it worse because he would like to, continue to win a Stanley Cup. And I understand, he would want to win for his country, and I do believe that. He was walking around, and if it's a lower body injury, I feel like he wouldn't be walking around Milan because there was a video of them walking around the night before. So I feel like if it might not be that bad, but I stayed up all night to watch this game. I wasn't gonna miss this. This was my miracle on ice. I wanted to stay up and support my god darn country, and and I'm not a political guy, even though our country might not be the best at sometimes. We might not do the right thing all the time. But the one thing that always just shows up and just proves is no matter what side you're on, when moments like this come around, no one cares about what color you are, what nationality you are. Well, unless you're Canadian. It doesn't matter if you're white, black, Hispanic. It does not matter at all. We are all Americans, and we all were rooting for Team USA. And Sullivan said it before the game to the boys. You have a country behind you, and I was there. I felt like I am supporting these guys. I stayed up all night so I didn't miss this game. I want them to win. And I tweeted, I was like, listen, I think that my heart says the United States. My brain is saying Canada because I'm so used to the United States just always losing the non-important game. The Four Nations last year, we won the game that didn't matter, but we lost the game that did. It reminds me of the Chiefs and the Bills. The Bills always beat them when it doesn't matter, but when it does, the Chiefs always end up winning. And for me, just this game, I could just feel the country united. That is what we are about. And I'm sick, I'm sick and tired of us getting together in moments of this and tragedy, because that's another thing when we're all united together. But when we have moments like this and people are actually together, not complaining about each other, not yelling at each other about shit, it really is something strong that nobody will ever understand. And this game had a lot of emotion going into it. I didn't know what was going to happen until it did. Let's get into it. The United States and Canada started off the game. United States had a amazing start to the game. Eventually it cooled down a little bit, and the United States kind of slowed it up, and The Canada kind of started getting more offensive time and started getting more shots on goal. The United States didn't have a shot on goal until finally Matt Boldy breaks between the Avalanche defenders in Taves and Makar, one of the best defensemen in the world, Makar, and beats Binnington. And I said whoever scores first, the United States needs to score first. It was the same thing I said against Canada for the women's game. I was like, the women's United States team needs to score first to get the pressure on Canada. And we did that. The game kind of went back and forth. Good saves by both goaltenders, good defensive. And one thing that needs to be said, and I'm going to say it now, the United States defense was so good. They did have holes every now and then, and we'll talk about those holes because we have a lot of problems actually that ended up happening in this game. And I really wish I could show clips. If the Olympics is very, very strict on the copyright law stuff going on. So, they were just so good with their sticks, well defended, making sure they don't really tie up anybody. We did have penalties, and one thing I appreciate is the referee staying out of it. The referees the entire tournament for both the men and the women was a big problem, and I hope that they fix that next year. And I think just so they could shut everyone up about all this stuff, I think you need to make it what the IIF does and make sure that other countries are doing those games. So make sure that if the United States, Canada make Sweden and Finland referees ref that game, So I think that's what they need to do just to shut everyone up, including me because I bitched about the officiating in the other games, not in this one. I think because both teams got away with everything. I think that, early on in the first, Marchand flopped. Marchand had a total flop. Could have been an embellishment penalty, and the NHL probably would have been. But the refs were just play on, and I appreciate that they just let them go on, didn't call it on either side, just let it go. And the flopping ended up stopping shortly after that because there was one more flop that it looked like happened, and they just literally stopped flopping ever since then. In the second period, back and forth action, the Canadians had a 5-on-3 power play opportunity that would have, in my opinion, ended the game. I think if they scored, this game was over. But the United States penalty kill was 100% in the Olympics. And that is amazing, especially when you consider, they didn't have a lot of their star guys on the penalty kill, which is very, interesting. They had Trocheck out there, and, guys that everyone was like, why are these guys on Team USA? That's my favorite part about this. These people on Canada were complaining about Suzuki, and eventually Suzuki is one of the reasons why they continued on in the tournament, right? Everybody complains about certain people making the roster, but those people make big time plays, and all of a sudden you just shut your mouth about them and you don't give them their props. It's just something that was interesting because Trocheck played amazing, I thought, this tournament. A guy who I was like, I don't know why he's here when other guys had an opportunity. No, he showed why he was on this team, and he showed why he deserved to be on Team USA. As well as everybody. Everybody did. Everybody showed up and showed out in this game today. For the United States and Canada, they had their guys. Although I feel like I'm gonna have to look at some ice time because I feel like I barely saw some guys on that team. Seth Jarvis, I feel like I barely saw him. He was the extra forward, and I would have had him in on a lot more situations. Anyways, late in the second period, Makar gets the game-tying goal, and then it felt like a momentum swing. Canada had most of the control. They were leading the team in shot, both teams in shots, I think at one point it was already 23. It was 20-13 or whatever, and then we were going into the third period. The United States barely had a shot on goal for the first half of the game in the third, and then finally they started getting chances. They had one chance that looked really nice, but they couldn't cash it in. Binnington was flat on his back, or just kind of on his side. There was an opportunity to score, but he makes the save. Then finally they get a little momentum. I believe the announcer even said during that, they were like, listen, this game probably the United States want to go to overtime because of how this game's going 5-on-5. And I agreed. Even though I felt like that wasn't necessarily the case just because, in my opinion, only Jack Eichel and Jack Hughes have the speed that guys like Connor McDavid and McKinnon have. So, but they also have McKinnon, Makar, Celebrini. They have guys that have speed. So I thought 3-on-3 advantage goes to Canada. So the fact that John Cooper's complaining about the 3-on-3 rules, that, by the way, stop complaining about the rules that you've known ahead of time. That is just a fact. I didn't hear you complaining about them when you scored the game-winning goal, against Czechia. You weren't complaining about 3-on-3 then, because at the end of the day, if that's 5-on-5, Mitch Marner probably doesn't score that goal. And we've seen him score some crazy goals, but that would have been a tougher one if there was 5 guys on the ice and not 3, right? So, like, John Cooper, I think you just need to you've won everything. You're one of the most successful head coaches. Just take the loss, man. Take the loss. The same thing with McKinnon. McKinnon is the only guy on Team Canada that has a negative point plus minus. So maybe you should also be quiet. We all saw who the better team was. Yeah, the one that didn't miss a 5 on. Celebrini had his opportunity. Connor McDavid had his breakaway. You had the 5-on-3. You had the Taves getting robbed by Hellebuck. You had McAvoy robbing Wilson because McAvoy was in the back of the net and he saved the puck off his chest. And then you had McKinnon miss the empty net goal that would have won the game, 5 feet away. And I keep saying, I'm like, listen, I know I'm not really one of these people, but I just had a feeling that maybe it was Johnny Hockey made sure that he got that puck a little bit, made sure that McKinnon kind of fumbled it a little bit, because he was definitely in that locker room. And I saw some dummy tweet about how the United States was they're playing to beat Canada. Like, no crap. They're playing to beat Canada. And then Canada's just focused on gold. And they're just focused on beating Canada. Yeah, they're focused on beating Canada to win gold, to support not only the people that have supported them their entire lives with their friends and their family, but also their gosh darn their friends, their family, their fallen teammate that is not there with them, and the entire country is behind them. People that have never watched hockey watch this game to support the United States of America. They don't support these players every other day. These guys probably didn't watch a single hockey game before this. But since it was a gold medal and it was against Canada, they tuned in. So, the best team did win. You guys be the judge of who the best team was. I will be. It's going to be the one with gold around their necks. It's that simple. So, both teams had an opportunity late. Jack Hughes got hit in the face by Sam Bennett, who I thought, this could have been it. If Sam Bennett were to, think about it, he doesn't make the initial roster. Everyone's wondering why. Then he's a late substitution after an injury. And if they scored on that power play, he would have been the reason why Canada lost that game. And then Jack Hughes ended up midway through that, hit the face of Horvat, I think. And then Canada kind of took over for the rest of the period. And finally, overtime. Again, I didn't think it was going to make it to overtime. My heart said 2-1 USA. And I said, well, here we go. I had 2 guys on both teams that would score. I said McDavid or Mitch Marner because they're probably the most shifty. And both of them have speed. I had Jack Eichel and Jack Hughes. And quickly, I did not think this was going to go to 20 minutes. I didn't think it was going to get to 10. I thought this was 5-minute max. Both teams had decent opportunities, decent shot attempts. I felt like McDavid kind of got a little too... I feel like McDavid got a little too hey, I want to be the guy. I want to be the hero. I don't know. But at the same time, in 3-on-3, you're just trying to drive to the net, create something, because you never know what's going to bounce in, right? You never know what's going to bounce in. And eventually, Canada loses because of it was a big gamble. People are giving Makar a lot of crap, but people would be saying that he's a genius if he makes the play. He tries to pitch the puck, and I believe it was him and McDavid were on the ice. McKinnon was all the way in the back playing D. And realistically, if Makar wins that battle, it is Makar and McDavid. And sorry. Yeah, no. That's right. And that's probably going to be a McDavid golden goal. The puck goes the other way. Werenski pressures Nathan MacKinnon. Nathan MacKinnon, and think about this, Nathan MacKinnon could have done what happened in the Team USA game for the women. Get that puck up ice, because if it were to go up ice, you would have had McDavid and Makar in the back 2-on-0. And 90% of the time, we're probably going to see, McDavid shoot that puck and win it. They don't. Werenski gets the puck. He finds an open Jack Hughes, who scores the golden goal for Team United States of America. And that is it. America finally wins gold and finally defeats its biggest rival in a huge stage. And this is just like the women's goal. I think this is going to help the next generation want to have these moments. You need these to continue to drive what hockey, obviously Hockey Canada is huge. And for the United States, they need to continue to grow the game and continue to get guys and kids that want to do this. And I think that this game will help that. I'm so proud of this group. It's funny when you have to cheer for people you don't normally cheer for. You don't cheer for Matthew Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk, and then all of a sudden you do. I always cheer for Jack, and I always cheer for Hanifin, and the fact that they won gold was awesome. I do feel bad for Stoner, for Bruce, for Theo, and for Mitch Marner, but they got the gold in the Nations 4. Yeah, the John Cooper comments are what it is, and like I said, I think the one thing Canada is going to really regret is what was the extent of Crosby's injury. I wonder if Crosby regrets it too. How bad is his injury? Now remember, guys, this injury was bad. It looked nasty. On the bright side, he's not on crutches. He doesn't look like he has a limp. I know some people were saying that he has a slight limp because he was walking the night before the game. That's why a lot of people assumed he would play. I wonder if, they were unsure about the injury, and I wonder if Crosby's listen, we have a talented group. I want to also try to win a Stanley Cup with my team. I don't want to risk potentially ending my season right here. And God forbid he hurts his knee in the first few minutes. Now they're going to have to, the United States is going to have an extra forward against them. So I think that he was just, let the fresh skaters go, and hopefully it's not a very, severe injury. And, I really do hope for the best for the, for him. I really do. Nothing but the best for Sidney Crosby. And I did say I think that Crosby not being there affected a lot, because I think their second best line was that Crosby, Mark Stone, and Mitch Marner line. They were just they had great chemistry. Those three had good chemistry, and obviously, two Vegas Golden Knights. They played together, practiced together for almost a year now. I mean, not almost a year, but they've had a lot of time together in the recent months. And it just kind of seems like if Crosby was in there, it's probably a different story, because I felt like when I was trying to match up line to line, it was when I saw Suzuki centering that line, it was I don't like it. I think one regret they're going to have is not making Reinhart and Jarvis play more. I think that Reinhart should have probably taken Tom Wilson's spot / Nathan MacKinnon's spot. I think MacKinnon should have played with Marner and Stone for a longer time. I think Suzuki should have been the fourth line center. I'm surprised Jarvis didn't get a little bit of more time because of how good of a season he's had. I think there's going to definitely be regrets for the United States roster as well. I think that, you kind of are hoping for certain people to step up. I wonder if guys like Kyle Connor, who really didn't play a lot, and it's you really wonder who's going to make this roster next year. or next go round, because it's just like, the group and the core are going to probably be the same. Obviously, the United States will probably do what they did again. They'll run it back, continue to run it back. But I think that, you need to continue to make changes. And I think that, somebody who impressed the hell out of me in this tournament was Tage Thompson. Like, obviously we don't see a lot of him, because he's in Buffalo, but he is a great player. And seeing him play with Jack and all these guys, like, it's awesome. Tage was just a big body that I felt like really helped. And I think that another guy that's similar to that, but just a little more elusive, is Jake Robinson. And I think that he was missed in this tournament for the United States. And I think that they're going to hope that maybe they can get him in next year, or next go round. But yeah, overall, this was an amazing experience. I stayed up to watch this game, and I'm glad I did. And I'm glad to be able to be not only a hockey fan, but I'm happy to be, in the United States of America. I know, like I said earlier, sometimes we're this, I always say that the people here are not bad. That's the same with every country. Not everyone is bad. The leaders might have, a measuring contest, but I think all the people always just want to be united. So, I'm excited for the future of USA Hockey. Congratulations to Team Canada for their hard efforts. And I think one thing also real quick, and then I'll end it, is that the United States and Canada had two different ways of going. I felt that the United States started slow all tournament, and they started to get hot, especially during the elimination games. Canada started hot, and I felt like ever since that overtime goal against Czechia, it was then their last game against Finland wasn't that great. Questionable calls. Like I said, I hope the officiating gets better next tournament, because I felt like it was very inconsistent. And it was just it felt like the United States was playing at the top of their game, and Canada was just kind of slightly playing under theirs. And eventually the United States took the victory. Congratulations, Team USA, and we will see you guys all back at home when all these guys have to go back to their normal teams. But yeah, like this video. If you liked it, comment down below. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on this gold medal game, and what were you doing? What's your reaction to it? And we'll continue to post. I'm working on a new series right now. It's in the works, and it's actually I'm in the process of making videos, but I want to get a good distance ahead before I start posting them. But that will be coming out hopefully sooner rather than later, and I will see you beautiful people later. Goodbye.